Hi, Maria. Today is June 26, 2020. My name is Leo Valdez. I'm interviewing Maria Juarez for the Voces of the Pandemic project, the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Maria, that this interview will be placed in the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection at UT Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or discuss, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you would like to discuss, please make sure to bring it up and we'll talk about it. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record your verbal consent. Voces wishes to archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation at the Benson Library at UT Austin. We will retain copyright of the interview and any other materials you donate to Voces. So I need you to respond to 3 questions, please. Please say yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each one. Do you give Voces consent to archive your interview and your materials at the Benson Library?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant Voces copyright over the interview and any material you provide?
Yes, I agree.
Do you agree to allow us to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. So thank you again, Maria, for being with me today and for doing an interview for the Voces Project on the impact of COVID-19 on the Latinx community. So the first question that I wanted to ask is, how did you first learn about COVID-19?
Through the news.
And what was your initial reaction to the information?
It was hard for me to understand and explain to my children what was going on.
How have you personally, or has a close family member or friend gotten COVID-19?
I haven't gotten tested. I don't think I've had COVID-19. I do have friends and relatives that have been tested positive for COVID-19.
Wow. How has that impacted you personally? Are there relatives who live with you, or are you close to them?
Yes, it's relatives that I'm close with. They don't live with me, but thank God, from my immediate family, we haven't had any COVID-19. But my uncles and friends, I have a few relatives that have had COVID-19. It's been very hard on some of them. A few of my friends have had the COVID-19, and a few of them said it was really hard for them to breathe in situations like that. And then I've had friends that have said that they have been tested positive, but they don't have any symptoms that could really, affect their health. They lost sense of smell and taste and stuff like that, but they didn't get the hard symptoms. A few of them did, and a few of them didn't.
Did you say that some people tested positive but didn't have any symptoms?
Correct. So they didn't even know that they had COVID-19. Because they didn't, none of the signs that at the beginning they were saying that, could present when you have COVID-19, they didn't have any of those signs. Actually, they didn't have any signs at all, so they didn't understand, they just had it, but they tested positive, but did not have any symptoms.
Well, that's good for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how have you been able to access healthcare? How have your family members been able to access healthcare?
We haven't actually. Think that we've been healthy, so we haven't had the need to go to the doctor. But like for the children, just the ones that I usually take for either immunizations or follow-up visits, I haven't had to schedule one because we had just, my children had just had their physicals done and they haven't gotten sick, so we haven't had to use any visits. But my doctor did, they did text me and said, that they're open and that we needed to have it was like a video, a video consultation, that they would be able to do that for my children.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know a lot of people have been having trouble accessing healthcare.
Yes, I could imagine. I haven't had the need to take my children to the doctor, so I haven't experienced that, honestly.
So another question I have is, have organizations or agencies in your community, and I know, from our previous interview that you're very involved in your community, have you noticed that there have been agencies or organizations that have been providing resources to the Latinx community during the pandemic?
I think that at the beginning it was so hard. I think everything was so difficult to have, but I think as in the middle of the pandemic, second month of it, you would start hearing, if, like sites to go to get tested, what are the symptoms to look for, or, if there's food needs, where to go to get food. There was a lot of community churches, I think, that would provide free meals for those who needed them, as well as a lot of Lazos, I know, was very, very responsive towards COVID-19 from the beginning. They would deliver food to people and, supplies as well. So it was not only food supplies that they, needed, healthcare that they did. So a lot of, yes, community agencies were able to provide those resources if needed.
Sorry, do you know of which churches were providing these free meals?
I don't know the name of the churches, honestly, but I know one is located on George Street, and like the one on Sudan Street. I don't know the name of the churches, honestly. There was a few churches that were helping. I can't remember the name. Mm-hmm.
What about other types of resources that churches have been provided? Has there been like emotional support or spiritual support? Because I know you mentioned that in our pre-interview that you go to church, and
yes.
how has COVID impacted your ability to go to church? Because obviously we haven't been gathering.
Greatly, it did impact it greatly, and now they're opening the churches. So I've been blessed to go to church the past 2 Sundays. You had to register, so there's a limit of 50 people that could go. So you would have to go online. Yeah, and before that, they do have a lot of support as a church. They had Zoom meetings. They still have Zoom meetings for like the groups that I was talking to you about previously. Like the grupos de oración. So I know that they have that available for anybody that wants to join the meetings. Mm-hmm.
Have those been helpful during the pandemic?
Yes, I think they've been very helpful. They provide support, and I know that a lot of families needed that support because a lot of the members in the church, I know, had either themselves were tested positive for COVID-19, or somebody that they lived with tested positive. So then nobody was able to go out to get food or the necessary, that essentials that you need. And the church members were very helpful in that matter, that they would go and drop off food or supplies that people needed.
I'm curious, how many people, ballpark number, have you actually known or heard about have gotten COVID-19?
I'm sorry, how many people that I have known?
Yeah, like how many people, like 5, 10, or 2?
Around 11, 12 friends and family members that I know of and coworkers. No,
Wow.
yeah, no more, because a few of our actually my coworkers were diagnosed with tested positive for COVID-19. So I could say around 20. Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that from anyone else yet. That
Oh
I think
wow.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of people. Did were
Mhm.
your coworkers exposed? Because I know you mentioned that you work from home now. So
Mhm.
did that did they get coronavirus before you all started working from home or afterwards?
Afterwards, because if we work for an agency, so even though I work for the preschool department, a lot of the other employees still had to work from home as well. But it was different because they had like a different schedule, and I know that their significant others didn't. Like the one of my coworkers, her husband he's a city employee, so he works for the what was it, the one of the departments for the city employees, and
Mhm.
he was exposed to COVID-19. Therefore, she was as well. So I think yeah, they got it from their either significant others or somebody else that lived with them that still had to go out and work. Because
Yeah.
I know here in New Brunswick, even though I was blessed to, work from home and still receive an income, a lot of people that I know stayed working during the pandemic. And I was like, why are, like, we were all supposed to shut down. And I know that a lot of factory workers were still working. And I'm like, but you guys are not essential. Why are you still? But the company would not close. And I think that cost a lot more people to get exposed. And I know of people that were diagnosed with COVID-19 and their employers still made them go back to work. So I'm like, it's just going to keep
Mm.
on spreading if we don't, listen to
Mhm.
follow the rules. But some big companies did not, stop or, did not have the necessary, um, they did not take the health precautions that they should have from the beginning. So a lot of them were working without masks, or they didn't sanitize the work area and stuff like that. So I think that's what made a lot more people get exposed to COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. How was your experience with that? Being someone who knew so many people who were made to keep going to work even though they weren't essential workers, and then you started working from home. How did
Mhm.
Yeah, so how did you navigate that?
Um, it was very sad and frustrating because it goes back, like I learned through this pandemic how selfish maybe we could be, or how I don't know. I don't know if it's, thank God I could honestly say that I've been blessed with not having to worry about, not having food. Maybe I don't know if I did have those, or if I didn't have any money to pay my rent, or situations like that, if I would have, how I would have reacted, would I've been brave enough to say, you know what, I might stay without a roof or food, and not go to work. I don't know. It was very hard, very sad to me, because I felt like a lot of people felt hope, like what is the word? Like they didn't have any other option, so they felt like they were obligated to go to work, or you know expose themselves and their relatives to COVID-19.
Mm. So even though you could work from home and weren't um, impacted in that way, are you saying that you still felt impacted because of all the people that you knew that did have to keep working?
Correct. I
And
think it's yes, it definitely impacted how I felt you know, or even I lived by a restaurant, and to me it was crazy to see that the restaurant during the pandemic at the beginning was open till like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and people would go in there and eat, and they weren't wearing masks, or there was not, precautions weren't being taken, nor were they enforced in New Brunswick, I feel.
So what was your experience? Did you take to the precautions immediately? Did you,
Yes.
because in New Jersey, there was the governor put out a task force very early in February, and then in March, everything started to close down pretty early.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. As soon as they told me to stay home, that we couldn't go back to work, that same day I did. I did not go out. I like to give my children experiences for, different restaurants, or we go out to eat on the weekend. As of March 17th, 16th, I think it was. We did not go out a lot at all. My brother helped us out a lot, so he went shopping like for food supplies for us. We did not leave the house. We stayed for over the first time actually we went out was about 3 weeks ago. That was for church reasons, and we went for I think the first one was the protest, the caravan. Actually, we went out, but other than that, we don't really. Till the day, we try to obey as much as we can to the stay-at-home order.
So after the stay-at-home order, the first time you went out was for a caravan protest? What protest was that?
That was a protest that we had for the Lincoln Annex, to defend the Lincoln Annex. Yes, and it was a car caravan, so it was. I didn't need to leave my vehicle or interact or socialize with other people, so we did that protest. And then the second one, which was actually an actual march, we went out and stood in front of the hospital to make the community aware of the Lincoln Annex situation.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about that first caravan protest that happened during the pandemic. And just, I don't know if you mind saying a few sentences, just because this is a second audio recording about the Coalition to Defend Lincoln Annex.
Sure. So the Coalition to Defend the Lincoln Annex, we started as a community members and parents of students of the Lincoln Annex. We got together so that we could stop the sale of the school that our children are attending, because the transparency wasn't there, and it's been a very hard and stressful fight, because there's a lot of people in power that are involved, so it makes it harder for us to fight for something that we know is right. So we're not fighting against building a cancer institute or a better school. Obviously, New Brunswick could definitely benefit from better schools, building better schools. It's just that school was almost brand new. They just renovated it, not new, but they renovated, made a lot of changes. And there's many other schools out here that are in worse shape than the Lincoln Annex is. And we just find it so hard that, the hospital wants to take it, knowing that it's one of the best schools here in New Brunswick.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you shared some sentences about that, because it's a really important struggle in New Brunswick. And like you said, it's one of the best performing schools. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that you started to talk to a little bit about that previous interview was your experiences in homeschooling your children. And I wanted to ask about what that has been like, about both working from home and, were your hours reduced after the pandemic started?
No, my hours were not reduced. I had to do my full hours. I work from 7:30 to 3:30.
So how did you manage now homeschooling your kids? Or did you homeschool your kids?
No, I didn't because they they even before the pandemic, like I said before, it I just feel that they need to learn how to do their work on their own. So I only make sure that they have the tools that they need for them to continue to receive an education. What was really hard for me, and still it is, I think that it's very hard because they're not learning, especially as they were in school. So all three of my children, I felt spent less time doing schoolwork. So obviously they weren't getting to learn about science or social studies as much as they did when they were in school. They were given assignments more like main assignments, but not a complete understanding of all the topics that they should be learning during the school day.
Why do you think that is?
I think that we weren't prepared for this to happen. Like I said, I work in a preschool now as well, and I think that it's from both sides. I think that from both sides we could have done better. I think a lot of the teachers were not fully teaching during their hours that they were supposed to. Like for example, some of my children's teachers, they didn't get to speak to through the whole pandemic. So it was just like the main teacher that, like my daughter has different teachers, she would only speak to her main teacher, which, would teach her what she was teaching, but not everything else that the other teachers had to teach them during the school day. Or and then from the parent side as well, maybe it's because again I was lucky to be one of the lucky persons that was able to stay home and work from home, and maybe other parents didn't. I've had parents that would say that you know they came too tired from work, and they didn't want to sit in the computer with their children to so that they could learn, because of a lot of the families that live here or that I work with don't have the resources. Like they don't have a computer, so a lot of them are doing classes from their phones. And those who had computers, like here in New Brunswick, the districts from third grade to eighth grade, you're automatically assigned a Chromebook. So they were able to do their assignments. My son was doing his assignments through my computer at the beginning of the pandemic, but midway the pandemic, the school asked us to go and pick up their laptops, so their Chromebooks, so that they could work on them, on their assignments. But I'm fortunate to have a computer, and a lot of families don't. So it must have been harder for them, like for the ones that do not have a computer or do not have a laptop, or they don't have a tablet maybe, so that their children would learn. So I could imagine if they were going to work, then to get home to have the children use their phone to do the assignments, it's very hard. And then internet, another thing, you need internet. And here at my house, thank God, we have phones, we have internet, we have everything that we need so that they could continue to educate themselves. But we had board of ed meetings, and when we spoke to some parents, a lot of them said that they weren't lucky to have a laptop or internet service. Therefore, it was harder for parents, for students, and for teachers. I guess it must have been also frustrating if you really are trying to teach children, and you feel that maybe the parents are not supporting you, but you don't understand that maybe they don't have money to buy a computer, or they don't know how to use the internet. It's very hard, for
Mhm.
for this district, I think, and for a lot of the students. And unfortunately, some students don't think education is very important. And I stress that to my children. My mom taught me to care about education and to know the important benefits. Like in our country, we come from a country where education is not free. You have to pay if you want to continue or further your education. And here it's free, and why not take advantage of that and and have your children succeed more in life or educate themselves better. When it's free, it's not something, that they,
Mhm.
yeah, that it's not hard, basically, for, for them to continue their education.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there were both challenges, like some teachers weren't meeting with your kids throughout the entire
Mhm.
pandemic, but there were at least some positive aspects of it. What were the school's technology like? Was it reliable, the Chromebook that they gave you?
Yes, mine's was. I think I didn't have a problem with them. We use the house internet. We have a good internet service, so I didn't. My kids didn't really struggle with their Chromebooks nor with the internet in the house.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any resources or tools that you need for your children to be successful that are not accessible to you and your family?
Um, I don't think so. Think we I think we have the tools that we need that they need to be successful.
So, just a general question. I know you just touched on this a little bit, but have schools been providing students all the necessary technology or assistance with distance learning?
I don't think so. Just because personally, I didn't see this myself. But again, when we had meetings with parents, they actually New Brunswick provides you with free internet. Apparently, I never used it. I never tried it because we didn't have the need for it. We don't have the need for it. But I know that a lot of parents did say in like group chats that we have that the internet wasn't working right, or that they would have to shut it down completely and then restart the whole system so that they could really they had challenges with the internet. Mhm. So it was harder for them to complete their assignments or for them to get the time or
Hmm.
my
Yeah.
yes.
How has it been like having your kids home all the time?
um it's been a little difficult, because you're so used to having them go out and exercise or just go outside and breathe the fresh air, but it's been very hard, just being home. They haven't complained, which is the good thing. But it's still hard, it's just to be basically, in your house all the time. But it's been bad and good, I think. I honestly say that it created like you're always when I was working, I always rushing from home to work, cook, clean, go to sleep, do the essentials. And now like time froze, you could say, and we were able to do more cooking together, more bonding together. We played a lot of games and watched a lot of movies together. So it was a good family time, you could say, relaxing wise, more more connection because we're together all the time. But it's also a little difficult because you also, like I said, need to go out and breathe fresh air, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense, more time to bond, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with your children, but also it's been difficult staying at home all the
Mm-hmm.
time. It was a radical
Mm-hmm.
change. Um, I'm curious about if if other members in your family are still working or if their jobs have been impacted in your household.
Um, no, no, because it's just my mom and I, and my mom, she's a school bus driver, so she had the same thing where they didn't she can't work. Obviously, there's no transportation for students now, so um, Well, yeah, she did, and then before that, she had a injury to her foot, so she was disabled. She was collecting disability all that time, so she wasn't impacted with the unemployment and not being able to get through because she has she had an open case from even before the
Mm.
pandemic started since January. So even though it's income obviously decreased, my mom's a very she saves money, and she was able to manage through even before the pandemic and now during the pandemic.
That's good. Yeah, because bus driver, I mean, that she must have stopped working in March as soon as the
Correct.
schools closed,
Correct.
but she was
Correct. But
able to access. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, she would have been impacted by it, and probably not been able to collect unemployment because I know there was a lot of issues with that. But yeah, she because she was under disability, she was able to, so it didn't impact her as much because she already was.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Has it been also difficult and good having your mom home all the time?
Yes, yes, both. We're obviously we have our own personalities, our own ideas, and sometimes we bump heads, but it's I guess a typical thing, and we don't really have a hard time with that here at home. Hmm.
That's good.
Hmm.
Um, so what about sending money to family members? Have you wanted to send money to family members who don't live with you or even friends out of
I
out, go ahead.
Yes, I have. I actually did give some support to some of my family members because I know that unfortunately they don't have any documentation like I had previously stated. So I know it was really hard for them to just to um, it must have been a struggle for them to go through this pandemic. So I decided to helped them a little, and I helped a few of my relatives and friends. And when I heard of different organizations like Mil Sonrisas and like a New York group of people, they don't have a name for their foundation because it was something that they did during COVID-19. It was a group of people who would cook meals and would, on a daily basis, stand outside in New York or here in New Brunswick and give families meals like Mil Sonrisas. I know went and bought rice and um, essentials, toilet paper, water, juice, little things that you could eat. And they would prepare them bags with milk and things like that so that the people had food at least to survive through. So I helped with things like that because again I always think that God has blessed me with my mother, obviously, because she's a great support system, but also that I was blessed to have a job and to still have an income and still, like I say, I always try to teach my children that there's, nothing more important than health and food. That's all you need. You don't really need an expensive car or expensive sneakers. You just need to be, have the essentials. So I felt that I could help others because even though we're not millionaires or anything, but we're okay. I was so blessed that we weren't exposed to COVID-19, or that my children didn't get it, or that I myself didn't get it, or my mom. So I saw how blessed I was, and I just wanted to help other people out that unfortunately were not as blessed or struggling. And I couldn't even imagine, going to bed without food. So I said, let me give my family members um, money that they wait. That way, even though it might be really hard for them to pay rent, they at least have food on their table. And they're together and alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm curious. So you said you've given money to some family members, and then what other ways were you directly involved with the what organization? Milson, what was it?
Mil sonrisas.
Mil Sonrisas. Okay, 1,000 Smiles.
Mm-hmm.
That's an organization in New Brunswick.
Correct. Actually, there are three of the members are two of the members are related to me. They're my mom's sister and her husband and my uncle, my aunt and my uncle, and then their brother. So it's this organization that basically helps with like they've been before the pandemic. They have an organization that basically helps people who have cancer. So it's more like a cancer organization. But because of what happened through the pandemic, they would get money and would go to Sam's and purchase items at bulk, like so milk, the essentials, tortillas, bread, uh, meat, so that they could deliver to families who requested help, because a lot of families I hear here in New Brunswick. Actually, I also got involved in mutual aid, which is something that some of the Defendi Lincoln Annex members decided to do, because we noticed that a lot of the undocumented, especially community, did not have any support either from the city nor from any organization. So we decided to open up an organization, and during the afternoon, I would so since I was still working full time, at nighttime I would call people and find out their status and different information that would help us um, get decide whether we could provide them with money or not. So one of the major things was obviously being undocumented would make you a priority, because obviously they weren't getting any type of support. So we would I would call, and if they got approved, we would meet, everything safe distance. We didn't meet personally. We did a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of um, phone call meetings. That way we could coordinate and help the community.
This is really interesting. I'd love to hear more about this organization. Can you tell me a little bit again? What is it called? How did it get started?
Okay, so we decided to call the New Brunswick Mutual Aid Funds. And the way we started was Ms. Lilia, who has, different resources and knows how to do different type of fundings. And Miguel, who's so amazing as well with the computer, and he's very tech savvy, so he was able to do a different things for us to be able to um, coordinate and do create this fund, which we used what is it called, the GoFundMe organization to open
money.
up to raise money, correct, so that we could provide families with support.
So
and we also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And we coordinated with other communities leaders like Lazos and New Labor, which are community organizations here that were helping. So what we did is when we spoke to the families that we made calls to, and they would tell us, well, you know what, I have money for food, but I don't have money for my rent, and my landlord's threatening to evict me. Can somebody help me? So we would get their information, and we would ask them if it was okay for us that even though we did not have any type of resource like that, but if we could give those groups, those agencies, or those community people their names, so that they could get additional help or support. So, or if they couldn't get medicine and they needed more than the money that we were going to give them, we would refer them to different people so that they could get more support, because obviously they needed it.
Yeah, Absolutely. So I'm curious about something you said before. You said that you noticed that the city and other organizations weren't really paying attention to the needs of undocumented people, and that
Correct.
so and that yeah, can you just say a little bit more about that, or how you even noticed that?
Again, because I obviously have family who is who doesn't have documents, who are not documented, and through the chats that we have for the Defender Lincoln Annex and uh, parent chats that we have, a lot of families were saying that they didn't know, their rights, or on rental assistance, on how everything was going to stop, and they still had to pay rent, or those who were working who got sick and then had to stop working during the pandemic, and they were, some of them were moved far away and they had to be quarantined, and a lot of them couldn't quarantine because their job wanted them back even if they had COVID-19. So when I heard, that's how I learned that the city wasn't doing anything, because they didn't put anything out about rental, any response about the COVID-19. So yeah.
So that's when you and Lilia and Miguel got together
Yes.
in
And
this
Miss
event.
Linda, yeah.
Miss Linda,
Mm-hmm.
who is she?
Linda, she's also a member of the Defender Lincoln Annex, or
Is she a,
organization,
is she a
and she was a
parent?
teacher.
Oh,
No, she was
okay.
a teacher. She's a retired teacher, and she actually taught at Lincoln School, and she lives in the Lincoln Annex area.
Hmm. So so you were working from home full time still,
Mm-hmm.
helping your kids, although they seem, pretty
Mm-hmm.
independent, and
Mm-hmm.
then also working on the Grupo Mutua,
Ayuda mutua. Mm-hmm.
Ayuda Mutua. Mm.
Yes. Yes, on the afternoon, when I was off work, I would make the phone calls, and we would meet so that we could decide which families would get support.
I'm curious just if you could talk a little bit about what motivates you to participate in this work.
Um, I think what motivates me is because I really want. I feel that there's not a lot of people have compassion anymore, and me raising three children, I would not feel proud to see that my children grow up thinking that another human life is less important than theirs, just because, let's say, they're here legal, or maybe because they are Mexican, or whatever causes people to have so much hate in their hearts. And I'm like, as a mother, I need to do something, and give my children those examples of being a better human being from what unfortunately I see in the world today. I don't want them to grow ignorant in the aspect that just because they were not undocumented, or because they were blessed, that they shouldn't think of other people, or you know I want them to know that every human has rights, or has a value in their life. It doesn't matter how horrible or how great people are. We're all humans, and we need to. I want to teach them to be more caring and compassionate and understanding to other people. So I do a lot of this for them, so that they see it and maybe learn from it, and not grow up to be mean to other people.
Yes, that sounds really important. I I agree with you there, although I'm not a parent myself.
Yes, as a parent, we have to teach our children and our relatives that we have to have more heart for other people who are less fortunate than us.
Yeah. Hmm. I'm curious how you have seen this school board of education of New Brunswick respond to the COVID-19 epidemic? Because you mentioned a couple questions back about how you saw families talking during these meetings. And
Not during the meetings, oh yeah, I could say during the meetings as well. Yes, I'm sorry, go on.
no, it's okay. Just if you could say a little bit more about that. Yeah, maybe I didn't understand quite which meeting you were talking about.
Well, Board of Ed meetings, like for example, I felt very upset. I'm still very upset and disappointed that one of the parents, Candido, who's more involved with the community because he's part of Cosecha, which is another organization, to help the also undocumented population, how he's more familiar with a lot of the families here in New Brunswick. And to me, he has more direct, communication with a lot of families. So he was saying that if in the Board of Education meeting, the first Board of Education meeting that was done by phone through this COVID-19 situation, he said, well, I know a lot of parents have a lot of concerns because they don't have a computer and they don't have internet. Can you please be more understanding and flexible about the situation? And Diana Solis's response, the president of the Board of Education response, like, no, my staff has, the staff, the teachers have the responsibilities, and so do the parents and the children. So if they're not doing their homeworks, there's not going to be any flexibility because they should be doing their homeworks. And I'm like, is she serious right now? Does she understand that not everybody is in the same situation? Like there's parents who did say they didn't have internet or couldn't access internet. So it was harder for their children to do homework. So I don't think the classwork, online classes. And to me, it was just, I'm still, I don't understand how the Board of Ed doesn't know the different struggles that people have in this town, because it's not from yesterday, it's not just because of COVID-19. A lot of them have those concerns and those throughout the whole school year. So why would you not be more careful or how you answer or how you respond to genuine concerns that parents have? So to me, it was very, or it's just the way they respond to me, it's very unprofessional. And I'm like, how do you guys think it's okay to speak like this or to not think or consider other people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So was Candido saying that parents need and kids need more flexibility with handing in their assignments and passing classes and graduating and things like that?
Yes, correct. That if there was something that could be worked on because, they were having a hard time, that they didn't have internet, or that the internet that the Board of Ed supplied wasn't working right, like could they do something to fix the different concerns? And her response was no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can't imagine that kind of a struggle, if you don't have the internet. How are you going to go to online classes?
Mm-hmm. Or if you're using your mom's phone, but unfortunately she has to go to work, and a lot of the children here, I feel, and that's another thing that I always tell my children, I don't ever want you to come home and think, oh, my responsibility is to babysit or to come clean or to come cook. I know for a fact a lot of these children, that's what their household looks like. You're not only do you have to worry about school, you also have to worry about, when you get home, you have to clean, cook, or babysit your siblings, or, different responsibilities that a young child shouldn't have. And it was hard for me to not see how they wouldn't help those specific children. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What about hospitals in the area? I mean, I know you said that you haven't been, thank God, gotten COVID, or your children or your mom, but you have had family members. And I just wonder about how their experiences have been with healthcare providers, if they've gone to hospitals or if they've gone to get tested.
Mm-hmm. So personally, for my uncles and my immediate relatives, I think it wasn't that hard for them. But I know of like people who, like somebody, one of my relatives relative, the person's not related to me, but the person, the passed away is not related to me, but they're related to somebody that I am related to. So they were saying that they were rushing to the hospital and they couldn't make it. So they died outside of the hospital because they couldn't breathe because of COVID-19. So I think it was not that easy. Then when through the mutual aid, a lot of them were showing that frustration that they didn't know what was going on. One of them, I was so shocked because he said, listen, I don't know if I have COVID-19 or not because they didn't explain it to me. He didn't speak English, and all the paperwork and the person that took care of him was English speaking only. So, and they didn't get a translator for him for some reason. I don't know why that happened or how that happened, but he said, I'm quarantining myself just because, I don't know if I have it. All I read on the paper is that COVID-19, but I don't know if it's that I have it or I don't have it, but I have to take the precautions. And I'm like, so I think it was hard for some people and maybe not so hard for other people, depending on what hospital they went. I don't know if that was the situation or what, but I know that it was, as far as I know, it wasn't so hard for many people, but for some it was, I guess. But we have
So
here, oh, sorry.
go ahead. No,
Here
you're
in,
fine.
here in New Brunswick, we have 2 hospitals, so I think it's also a benefit because if one is full, I'm pretty sure the other one does. We have St. Peter's and Robertwood. So it was, to me, I think, even though I didn't experience anything or I didn't have to go to the hospital, I think we were more lucky than other towns that don't have a hospital nearby, or they only have one hospital. And a lot of people have COVID, so I think
Yeah. Yeah, but also New Jersey has some of the highest concentration populations in the country
Mm-hmm.
in terms of density, population density. So
Correct.
yeah, I wonder even if 2 hospitals is even enough, for something like this. So
Correct.
that's that horrible story that someone was on their way to the hospital and they died right outside of the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what I heard from my relative was that it was so bad that he couldn't breathe and they had to take him to the hospital. And before you enter, they have to do a survey, whatever the case may be that you have to do. And when they were doing that, they were going to register him in. He couldn't make it, and he passed away.
Do you know if he had a pre-existing condition or if he didn't have insurance and didn't want to go to the hospital earlier, or if he was turned away?
No, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if he had been to the hospital before or if he had a condition. I don't really know him. I just know that my aunt called really, nervous and saying, guys, be careful. If you guys are not staying in, take this serious because, there's people who are really dying. And, she was
Yeah.
devastated because it was her relative. Uh-huh.
That's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Uh-huh.
And in terms of the mutual aid group, just curious if you could discuss a little bit about how you all coordinated who you would prioritize in terms of giving money to, and how you even went about making those decisions.
Okay, so we as a group decided that we would have um, a checklist of priorities. So if one would be you're undocumented, you haven't been able to pay for your bills or rents, and what was the other one? Let me remember. We had to ask if they were getting any type of support. So if they weren't getting any type of help and they were delayed, a lot of them were delayed for 2 months in their rents, and they had, or if obviously they had COVID-19. So if you had COVID-19 undocumented and behind on your utilities or your rent or rent, we would automatically they would automatically qualify for the funds. Mm-hmm.
And how did you distribute the information? Like, how did you let people know that people were sending in donations and that you were about to distribute everything.
How did we inform the people?
Yeah, how did you inform the community?
Online. So what we did is we did a lot of Mr. Miguel would update all like how many families we helped. So when we would help families, we would ask them if we could first share their story. When obviously we did it anonymously, so we would just put initials and no further information, no address or anything like that was required. So it was just their initials and what they lived, what happened with them in COVID-19, or why they needed the help if they didn't have COVID-19. And was basically done online. We would update the mutual, there was a page that we created for the mutual aid, and the GoFundMe, we would update it as well. So that way they. Mm-hmm.
What was the reason that you shared their stories?
So the reason, two of the members of the mutual fund group, they thought that it was important for us to share the stories because a lot of fraud goes on. So we don't want people to think that we were lying about what we were doing. Obviously, if you're giving money, a lot of people know that where your money is going. So we would, they said, you know what, let's let them know the different stories and you know, they would send like thank you notes for the people who helped also, you know, with the funds.
I see. That's really smart. Actually. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was more like for, I guess, one of the biggest faults here in New Brunswick and what caused me to get so upset was the lack of transparency that the Board of Ed and a lot of the city, obviously, officials have. So I said, I guess it was a motivator too to show what we were doing and who was benefiting from the funds that we were giving.
I see. So you were modeling what the Board of Education should do.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Mommy.
No problem. You can talk to her if you need. I can pause the recording.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
No, you're fine. No, the other questions, of course, are about the current Black Lives Matter protests happening, especially, you know, a couple weeks ago when they were really after the death of George Floyd. And I was wondering if you participated in those as well.
Yes, we did. Right after the protest outside of the hospital, that same day, which was a Saturday, they were going to have a Black Lives Matter through Rutgers. I guess the students at Rutgers decided to do a protest, so we went to that as well.
And what was that experience like?
It was an experience. It was a good experience to me because I was able to see firsthand a lot of the frustrations and the reasons why the protest, and you know why they were so upset with what happened to George Floyd. And not only that, it's just the community getting together and showing, you know, that we need to change things. Is something that not only happened to George Floyd, it happens here. I'm gonna, like I said, I think I'm very blessed that
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I'm sorry. Is that the battery? My computer battery was dying, so I was plugging it. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
That you know, that I've been very blessed. I don't really have other than one horrible experience with the police. I've never been mistreated, but I know that a lot of like my family members or even my brother have told me stories of how they've been discriminated. And I think it was important for all of us to come together and to let the police know that, enough is enough. You can't be doing this to the members of the community.
What kind of an interaction with the police did you have?
So one time I got a ticket. I tend to drive, and I have a mirror. I actually don't have it anymore, but I used to carry a mirror, and I look at my face because I get like a little rash sometimes with the sun. So I tend to look at, I don't know, I have this bad habit of just looking for a weird reason, I don't know. And I grabbed the mirror, and the cops was on the opposite direction. He looked at me, and I did have my Bluetooth on, so I was on my phone. I was actually talking to my daughter because I had gone shopping. So I told my daughter, when I get home, open the door because I have food, so be ready so you guys could help me bring the stuff in. And he turned around and he pulled me over because I was on the phone. But it wasn't that I had the phone on me. I had a mirror on me, and I went to court to fight it. And when he was there, I said I wasn't on my phone. I had a mirror, and he looked at me. He went, like, I was sitting down. He went down to my level, and he said to me, "Listen, I know what I saw, and you're not gonna say that I didn't. We could go to court for this, but you're just gonna spend a lot of money and our time. So why don't you just say that you're plead guilty?" I'm like, I'm not gonna plead guilty to something that I didn't do. And when I said that to him, he spoke really loud to me and said to me, I still have, don't make this difficult. I still have 3 more years before I retire, and I can make your life really hard. So think about what you're gonna do. And I said, did you just threaten me? And I told the prosecutor, I don't want to talk to this officer anymore because he shouldn't be threatening me. If I'm saying that I didn't have my phone on, I don't need to lie and say that I didn't, and that I didn't. I didn't have it on, so I'm not going to plead guilty to something I didn't do. And then he said, well, and then I kind of got nervous and scared, I guess, because even though I didn't show it to him right away, I did end up pleading guilty because he said I could do, it wasn't going to be a cell phone, it was going to be a something else. It was, I can't remember what they gave me a ticket for, but it wasn't for being on the phone. And then I was like, what did I just do? I regret it because I got points on my license, and like I can't have an accident. I can't have any tickets on my license, or my insurance goes up, something like that, something for 3 years. Not like, oh my God, I should have just bought it because I really was on the phone. Like, oh, the camera was there. It's going to show that you were on your phone. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad the camera was there. You're going to rewind it, and it's not going to be a phone that you're going to see. You're going to see my mirror. It was a little like round mirror. It's not the square, or I'm sorry, rectangle. So you could tell right away that it's not a phone. And I don't know, I got nervous and I pleaded guilty, but the way he spoke to me was so disgusting because I wasn't rude to him. I wasn't doing anything, bad to him for him to speak to me like that, or to even think that it was okay to threaten me, to say that he's gonna. And I said, well, from now on, I'm gonna carry a camera with me all the time because now he just threatened me, and I'm gonna make sure that I have a camera with me because he's not gonna, harass me. And that was it. He didn't say anything after that.
Has that impacted your driving practices in New Brunswick since then?
Negative. No. I refuse to. I don't live in Mexico for a reason, so I'm not gonna live in America scared. When no, I can't let it.
So it hasn't, even in the moment, it was scary. You haven't experienced more fear since then.
Correct. No, I haven't.
I'm curious about one thing you said. You said he got down to your level. Were you sitting down?
Correct. I was sitting down and he was standing up and he talked to me like I was his kid. I don't know. I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, I don't know what was wrong with him, but he definitely, I could see it. So then my brother was telling me about one experience where my brother had this habit of hanging out with not the best crew, but I can honestly say that my brother is he's not a bad person. He doesn't really have any like bad thoughts or anything like that about people. And but he does not know how to choose his friends sometimes or the people he talks to. And he got pulled over and he had a Mexican juice called a Humex. And the police officers pulled him over, and I guess they were expecting to find something. And when he didn't find anything, he opened the bottle and he said, "What is this shit?" to my brother. And my brother's like, "It's a Mexican drink." He's like, "Well, it tastes like shit." And he threw it on the floor. He said, "Pick it up." And then when he went to pick it up, he's like, "Here's your ticket for littering." And I was
Uh-huh.
like, "No, that didn't happen." He's like, "Well, yeah, it did happen." He's like, and they would be, he was just being harassed by the police. So he was given a couple of tickets, like a parking ticket on a daily basis for a whole week. And everybody else parked there and he would be the only one to get a ticket. So we live, of course, on a street where there's not a lot of parking. And even though there's a yellow light, a lot of people park there. And my brother was one of those, and I parked there, and he would get tickets, and nobody else would. So they knew it was that police officer who was, who had something against my brother.
Yeah, you couldn't see my face, but my jaw dropped with that interaction because that's terrible.
Yes, yes. He's had, I don't know if it's 'cause he's a male, he's had more experiences because I honestly, even living in East Brunswick, a lot of people say, "Oh, you know what? They're very racist. They're hard." No, I've never had, thank God, never had bad experiences with cops in either town, and I hear
That's
that a
good.
lot of people do.
A lot of people say that the New Brunswick police are racist.
Yes, that they're very mean and very, but I haven't experienced it other than that one time, and it wasn't even during the stop. It was more when I went to fight it at court.
So
Mhm.
during the stop, during your interaction, he just gave you the ticket. Did he say, why were you talking on the cell phone? How did that happen?
Nothing. He didn't say nothing. He said license and registration insurance. The reason I'm pulling you over, first he said, was because you were on your device. And he walked away, went to his car, and I'm like, well, maybe if he looks that I've never gotten any, tickets or anything in his computer, maybe he'll change it or do something else. And when he gave me the ticket, it was because of, being on my device. So I was like, oh my God, no. We didn't interact at all after he just gave me my ticket and he kept going. Oh no, I did tell him. I said I wasn't on my phone, and he said, well, then go to court to fight for it. And that's when I went, and that's what he said when
So he
I
told
saw
you to
him.
go to fight for it in court, and then in court
Mm-hmm.
he threatened you if you
Yeah.
decided to go through and fight for it.
Yes. He's like, you're wasting everybody's time and money. And, I know what I saw. You're not going to lie to me. Why are you lying? And I'm like, I'm not lying. I'm saying the truth. I wasn't on my phone. There's a camera. I'm like, good. Well, then look at the camera and see that it's not a phone that I was on. He's like, I know what I saw. You're not going to tell me different. And that's when he said, I'm going to be here 2 more years. It's 2 or 3 more years before I retire. And I will make your life hard. I'm like, well, you do whatever you have to do. Don't threaten me because I was like, I'm gonna. And I told him, I was like, I'm gonna carry a camera from now on.
I'm
Mm,
curious if you have any sort of sense, any feelings about why the police officer was so angry at you in the courtroom.
I don't know. No, I don't. I don't. Maybe honestly he did think that I was on my phone and I was lying, but I don't think he should have spoken to me the way he did. Maybe because I'm a female, and for that I'm a short female. so so I don't know if he just wanted to said that because of who I am, or if that's how he speaks to other people. I don't know. I don't know.
Have you been afraid about experiencing retaliation by either the city government, the Board of Education, or police officers in New Brunswick because of your efforts with the coalition to defend Lincoln Annex?
Yes, yes. At the beginning, I wasn't, but then a lot of the community members I didn't know have been, fighting for, different things here in New Brunswick. And apparently, when they don't like what you say, they come after you. So the reason I found this out is because of my first interview that I did. They asked me for my name, and I said, yeah. They're like, can I use your name? I'm like, sure. And then one of the members of the coalition said to me, Maria, don't do that. Don't give them your name. Don't give them your address. The less they know about you, the better. Because if this gets big, they're gonna come after you. They've come after other members. Like I hear that they've harassed members from the community, and I'm like, um, or intimidated them. And at the beginning, I guess people thought that I was undocumented, so they were saying, it could affect your status here. I'm like, well, I don't have that fear because I'm not undocumented, so I don't need to worry about that. I thought that was the only fear that I would have to face, like people saying, oh, you might get deported or something. But then when I started talking to more of them, they're like, oh, they will make your life hard on you, and if you're renting, they'll make the landlord kick you out. I'm like, well, thank God I don't have to worry about that either. It's my mom's house, so they can't really tell my mom to kick me out of her house, or stuff like that. So I was like, I'm not scared of that, but that part where they say that they do come after you, like the city officials. And then when I go to city hall meetings and stuff like that, I do hear people saying, I don't like to give you my address because then they come and visit me at my house, or, they show up and they intimidate you. And I'm like, now I'm scared. So I was like, and then you're forced, like at the city hall meetings, you're forced to, I'm sorry, at the freeholders meetings, you're forced to give your address. All of them, actually, at city hall too. They all ask for your name and address. And I'm like, oh, we're actually, everybody could know, now that, even more now that we have the lawsuit, that where I live and what my name is, and they could come in and do something. But, hopefully it won't happen, or, so I'm
Mhm.
just, yeah.
Can you tell me about the lawsuit? Are you one of the plaintiffs?
Yes, I'm the main plaintiff, actually. So it's Maria Juarez against the Board of Education. So there's a few of the parents. I don't know why they decided to just name it after me, but the lawyers, it's it's named Maria Juarez against the Board of Education, but it's not only me; it's other parents as well.
Wow, you're going in the history books.
Yeah.
So, how did you decide to file a lawsuit and, get a lawyer?
So Mr. Juan, who is one of the members also of the coalition, he knows Justice the lawyer from Justice Latino Justice. I'm sorry. So he was the one who guided us through that. And it's like, if you guys want to, we could do a lawsuit. And I said, yeah, if it's going to defend and help the cause, we definitely should do something, because enough is enough. Like, what else? Like, this district always gets away with doing whatever they want, and more like looking at the superintendent's arrogance. When he spoke to us, he was very nice, and he showed us a side of him. And then 5 minutes later, when he's being video recorded by the newspaper, by the news reporter, he said something completely different. So I'm like, this is enough. We need to stop this. They need to stop thinking that it's okay to affect negatively the education of our children.
I see. Okay, so the lawyer from Justice
Mm-hmm.
is the main lawyer on the case, and then it's a group of parents on it. You
Correct.
just said something that kind of stuck out to me. You said the district always gets away with doing anything they want.
Mm-hmm.
So, what has been your experience? Have you noticed a pattern? Maybe say a little bit more about that sentence. Yeah.
Yes. So, for example, again, I go to they put money where they shouldn't put money, especially in a district like this. I think that a lot of administrators get more money than they should, but then the teachers who are the ones who are actually with their children always have to fight to get a raise, even though they shouldn't. I'm like, why is that that way? Or, they're like, even with the teachers now, I feel bad that they couldn't even talk to us about how they felt about the Lincoln Annex or to give us more input. I honestly would love to know how the teachers at the Lincoln Annex really do feel about it, because it makes me, even though it won't stop me from fighting for this cause, because I believe that it is an important cause for me and for my children, but I would get a better understanding also of where they're stand, like what they feel or what they say. And when they were told not to say anything, like how can you as a teacher not express yourself? How they're the district to make that decision for them? They should be able to address any concerns that we have, or to give us their 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 point of view. And when that wasn't the case, it really bothered me, because I'm like, the district's always doing things that, mm, like, they give children expired food. You have money for food. Why are you giving the children? The lack of interest that I see from a lot of people that work in the Board of Education makes me really sad and frustrated that you don't really care about the children you're serving. So that's why I say that, enough is enough. I'm tired of them putting money or stealing money or doing whatever they want with money that should go for the children.
Hmm. I I have a couple more questions. You also mentioned when I asked you about whether or not you were worried about experiencing retribution, that some community members had been harassed.
Correct.
Um, by who has harassed them, and what have they done to them?
So they've told me that they've been harassed by either other members, by a lot of the people, I guess, that were part of groups like this are undocumented. So they would say, well, you have no rights, you're undocumented, you don't have nothing to say, or the police has come over and bother them enough to cause them to move out of wherever they live, or different things like that. From what I hear, I haven't experienced that, but a lot of the members have said that to me. So I would think it's true, just because
Mhm.
even what my brother told me, once the officer had it against him because he thought that my brother was dating somebody that he wasn't, and he liked the police officer liked her. He started doing that. So I'm like, if he was okay and he could get away with that, what else could they not get away with? Just for a girl, you're gonna harass somebody? To me, it was crazy. So I feel that that's like, I feel like the statements that they made were true, because I've seen people say things like they're this is what's happening to them. Mm-hmm.
That's astonishing that the police. So I guess what you're suggesting is that the police have been invested as well in the struggle over Lincoln Annex.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
That
you at the beginning.
that the police have engaged in this kind of behavior after the protests for the Lincoln Annex school started.
Not directly to me or the people that I know, but that's what
Okay.
they've said to me. So
I see.
I wouldn't.
Right. So I think we've covered a lot of the COVID-19 questions, and of course, we have the other much longer interview about your life. Is there anything else that you would like to share with me about your experiences with COVID-19, with the Coalition to Defend Lincoln Annex, with the mutual aid group? I did have one question actually before this last one. How has your mom how has your mom reacted to your activism? Is she supportive of you?
No, no, my mom's very against it. She's her mentality is just like that, you know, it's the Board of Ed, they know better, they're doing the best for the children, it's the best, you know, the children's best interest. If they want to move them over there, it's for a good cause. Why are we fighting it? So she doesn't agree with it, but you know, that's about it. Like we don't really we could agree to disagree, and I just because she thinks that way doesn't mean that I have to think away that way, nor do I let it affect me negatively because I'm raising my children and I know that I'm trying to do the best for them. So if she can't understand that, then you know, that's just her opinion. I'm still gonna continue to defend my daughter's education because it's going to affect my daughter and I want to teach her. Again, I say I was raised where you can't say or explain how you feel or what you think is not right. You know, you're raised not to know how to express yourself. And that's another thing that I want to teach my children, that that they have a voice and that it should be heard. So this is also to set an example to them that, you know, stand for what you believe in. No matter if I or anybody else disagrees, you still have your own person. You have your own opinions and your own um, mentality, everything. So you can't be doing things based on others' experience. You have to, you know, do it based on what you know or you feel is right.
Hmm. Hmm. And what about your children, your 3 children? What are their opinions on the Coalition to Defend Lincoln Annex? Do they even understand really everything about it?
Yes, yes, they're very supportive. Even my younger brother, son, I'm sorry, even my younger son, which I didn't really think he would because he's 8 and we don't really speak much about it, but he sits there and when he goes to, I take him to the meetings. So he now has this thing where whenever we start arguing or something, he starts saying, "Mommy, stop it, you're out of order. We're all out of order. Let's calm down." Like he thinks about things that we lived through and there's just, to me, it's always funny to say that because he always like, everybody's out of order. Well, you're out of order. I'm out of order. Everybody's like, he says some things
That's
like he's
hilarious.
listening to the things that are going, and then he would be really sad and say, why are they taking that school? Like that school is better than my school because he goes to Roosevelt. So he's like, why not take another school? Why not take Lincoln, or why take one of her, you know, like, even though I'm not in that school, I'm sad for my sister and my older daughter as well. She's like, sometimes, you know, it gets, especially after having to attend meeting after meeting, like every day we were at a meeting, she did get a little frustrated because obviously she's first of all a teenager. Second of all, she's a loner, so she doesn't really like to be in public, and the least interaction she has with the human population, the better for her. So it was very, I guess, hard for her, but not that hard because she would still go with us to support her sister. And sometimes she would be like, not another meeting, but she kind of understood because she didn't make a big deal or complain not to go and support, whether it be at the meetings, Board of Ed meetings, City Hall meetings, Freehold meetings, or when we, came together as a coalition with the other parents to share ideas or what are our steps to do a protest or to call the Board of Education or call City Hall, wherever we had to, whatever decisions we were going to make, we would meet about, and they were fine after a while and supportive.
Well, your three children sound really wonderful and smart and kind people. So
Thank you. Working on keeping them that way as they grow up, hopefully.
I'm sure you'll do an amazing job. I'm sure they'll be amazing adults one day.
Thank you.
So now for my last question about anything else you'd like to share about anything we've talked about for the past 2 days.
Yes, one comment I would like to say is that I would love to know how we could this was one of my biggest frustrations and struggles, I think, through this Defend the Lincoln Annex, the lack of support from the community. I know that there's a lot of parents that disagree with it, but just go along with whatever decision is being made. So I don't know, it's just hard for me to understand. And sometimes it does bring me down, and it does make me a little frustrated and sad. Like, there's times when I'm like, I just, you know what, forget it, let's just drop it. No, because I don't feel that support, but then I always have to remind myself that I'm not doing it for other parents or others, other parents, because I am doing it for other children, and to set an example and to motivate them to always speak out for what they're against. But I just find it so hard to understand how, as a parent, would I not get involved? And we've had meetings, and then we have parents who say no, we're against it, but no, let's not say nothing, let's not make a big deal about it, we don't like to fight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're not fighting, there's not a ring here, we're just advocating for our children and defending them. But I think, to me, it's hard to understand how or why there's not a lot of parent involvement, so it's just basically 5 of us all the time. And it's just that, I think, is my biggest struggle, understanding it and dealing with it. Like, sometimes it gets very frustrating sometimes, where you're like, everybody says that they're against it or continue to fight it, but you're not here, you're not in the meetings, what is going on? Like, the more they see people disagree with it, I think it's also another sign for the Board of Ed, like a red flag for them to be like, oh, let's pause and really think about what we're doing. And when it's just a few of us who actually stand up, it's hard for me to understand it.
So when you, because I've gone to just a few meetings, a few protests, you're saying that there aren't a lot of people who go, that there's not a lot of community support, even though most people are against the closing of the school?
No, I honestly believe, and the reason I always stay in this fight is because the support from the community has been amazing. Like, I am always so happy, and that's one thing that I felt embarrassed at the beginning, and the reason I got more active with the Defend the Lincoln Annex project is because I saw how many community leaders were fighting against the sale, and a lot of them, like Ms. Lilia, Ms. Linda, Mr. Juan, Miguel himself, and oh my God, I forgot her name right now. Anyways, a few, like Rutgers, the Rutgers program, and all this community members advocate and fight so strong to keep the schools. Like, it gives me chills every time I go to a Board of Education meeting and I hear somebody, defend a school and not have a child there. And then I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Why am I letting them fight this fight? This is my fight as well. These are my children. I have a daughter that goes there, and I have children in this district. Why would I not fight with them? Why would I not stand together with them to defend something that is wrong? And so no, not the communities, the parents. To me, it's very hard. There's 860 students in that school, and I would think that at least 100, we would at least, or maybe 20, we would be there, to support, to understand what was going on, to really get the truth about everything that's happening. And I learned so much through this coalition that I am amazed at how things are run, and I continue to believe that it's the lack of parent participation, as well as when we have problems with the city. If we don't go to the city meetings and we don't show that we care, we're not going to get anything changed. So to me, it's hard to understand that the parents, not a lot of parents, don't get involved. We always have no more than 10 parents, and I'm like, but you guys all come to meetings and say, like when we went to do the signature, a lot of parents said that they were against the sale, or I've heard myself from other parents that say, oh, we're against it, but what are we going to do? They've already decided they're going to decide, and it's just hard for me to understand why their lack of participation as parents.
Do you think a lot of them are undocumented, and that's why?
That's what a lot of people say, but I don't know. Again, I don't have that situation where I'm undocumented or have that fear, but to me it's hard to believe that, just because you fight for other things. I mean, I know a lot of parents fight for, you go to a laundromat and they're fighting for a laundromat. I don't know. I just don't know if they don't know to care about education. Some people fight just to have a husband, and I'm like, if he doesn't want to be with you, why are you fighting with somebody else who's not even in the relationship? So I know that these are parents, So if you could fight for stuff like that, why not fight for what you say that you're against? Or it might be my ignorance. I don't understand it.
I don't think you're ignorant. I have one question also to follow up about the previous question. You said that you've learned so much from the Coalition to Defend Lincoln Annex, and I just want to hear what you've learned.
I've learned a lot of good things, a lot of community support, but I've learned that we live in a very corrupted city. Like when we go to city meetings and I hear, that everybody that's in that board is also in the board. Like everybody knows each other, which is okay to know each other. But when you mix things, I think it's harder for you to do an efficient job, because when we went to the city hall meeting, they said they had nothing to do with it. Yeah, you're the ones who have to plan or agree if they're going to construct. So yes, you do have part of it. Why would you say to us in public that you don't? Or other matters that I learned through them, like Charlie. I have more respect for Charlie now, because I really like to investigate things. Like, so when I started with this fight, I didn't want to be just fighting and not knowing anything. So I looked at a lot of videos that were posted from Board of Ed meetings or from city hall meetings. And one thing that I noticed is that Charlie always brings stuff up that I agree with. Like, if you said we need a handicap sidewalks or something and you don't have them and you promise you would, why is it 3 years later and we still don't have it, or 5 years later and we still don't fight it? And you have community members coming to your meetings all the time, like Ms. Danielle, like Mr. Charlie, who are very active in this community, and they know a lot. Like, if I have any questions, I know that I could ask Charlie or Danielle and they would have answers. And why are you not doing nothing? Like, if like, it's just, I noticed in the same thing with the Board of Ed. One day they said something, and then like with transportation, I don't know where these rumors are coming from. We're going to provide you with transportation, when just literally 2 days before they had said to us as the parents that they would not provide transportation. So it's just so many lies. And when we asked about the deed restriction, we don't know about the deed restriction. And they didn't know, because in the meeting before, Charlie had asked them about the deed restriction, and that he made them aware that it was Mr. Hendricks that had signed the deed restriction. And then they say they don't know. I don't know. It's just too many lies. Too many. Why lie? You're being recorded. Everything's gonna come out. I don't know. It's just too. I learned a lot. Like, don't say one thing one day and then, especially as a board member for either the city or for the Board of Education, or even when we went to the CDA meeting,
one of the members is from New Brunswick and knows, you know, they all know that something's wrong and they're not doing anything about it to fix the problem.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So now really the final question. Well, in addition to if there's anything, I do have another question, and then of course, and then I'll ask again if anything else, if there's anything else you'd like to share. But I wanted to ask about what you are envisioning for your future, especially short term, especially you talking about the Black Lives Matter protests, and obviously that's changing a lot in our country about COVID-19. You know, things seem to be opening back up. Schools may open back up, and the Coalition to Defend Lincoln Annex. And what's the future for that?
How? Okay, short term.
You know, or long term. I mean, long term as well.
I don't even know how to answer that question, honestly. I don't know.
That's okay.
I don't
That's okay. I mean, also, that's one of the things about the coronavirus, right? It's made us be unable to plan for the future. So
I just I think I just want to continue to, you know, educate myself and my children the best way possible, and give my children a better future.
All right, so is there anything else you'd like to share before we conclude the interview?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Maria. I'm going to say thank you formally on the interview, and then I'll pause the recording and say thank you again because, you know, we're on Zoom. But thank you for your participation. It's been, you know, a really wonderful contribution, and I'm really glad that this is going to be out there in the world.
Thank you for making time to do this interview as well.